Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Coach the Coach Radio. Brought to you by the Business RadioX Ambassador Program, the no-cost business development strategy for coaches who want to spend more time serving local business clients and less time selling them. Go to brxambassador.com to learn more. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Coach the Coach Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Robert Joseph Palmer with the Raven Institute. Welcome, Robert.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lee. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited to learn what you're up to. Your title is the New Consciousness Coach. Tell us about that, and tell us about the Raven Institute.
Well, New Consciousness Coach is, we relaunched our business in February of this year. And really, the schools full of tools at the Raven Institute are a compilation of everything I did as a teacher and school leader for over 20 years. You know, all the best practices I use. And I was always encouraged to show them to the world. And so it's manifested into three schools, the School of Writing, School of Leadership Development, and then School of Entrepreneurship. But New Consciousness Coach it's unique in that, you know, a lot of what we hear in what I call common consciousness coaching is that, you know, to do this, to be a successful entrepreneur involves struggle. So I like to try and tell people what New Consciousness Coaching is not first. And it's not about struggling. It's not about difficulty. It's not about having expectations on an outcome. It's not about forcing your will. It's not about anxiety, fear, and suffering. It's about channeling your highest excitement. So it's about connecting to your higher self, to your higher consciousness, and to allow things to happen with ease and to empower yourself to watch things grow exponentially and just, you know, that it can be a lot easier than we're told. Because that's pretty much how I spent my entire teaching and school leadership career, co-founding 2 high schools, was showing kids how to do things better and easier so that they come back and do them again. It's not a struggle. They're excited to do it again and again and again because it works and it makes a difference. And so, you know, I find a lot of coaches are pretty much asking people to struggle. And we know from what we teach people, because we're actually putting together what we call the New Energy School too, is what you create through anxiety and fear and what you create through excitement are 2 very different places, very different frequencies. So what we do is try to help people understand that and see the difference and how that feels. We all do it. Everybody can do it, but we try to help people channel their inner fill in the blank instead of trying to be some limited definition of what they think an entrepreneur is supposed to look like or a successful person.
Now, talk a little bit about kind of the evolution of your career from working in that kind of maybe bureaucratic education space to this more freewheeling entrepreneur space. Did things transfer kind of organically from that space into the space you are now?
Yeah, incredibly seamlessly and easy. What didn't translate was me. So when I was in the educational space, I was following my excitement and being the highest part of me every day. So everything just happened naturally. I never worked a day in my life. Everything was very easy. It was very easy for everyone around me. I made sure of that. And everybody was happy. And I got paid to laugh all day. And then I became an entrepreneur, which is a book I want to write one day. And then I became an entrepreneur. And suddenly I went into a place where I was afraid. I was trying to be something I wasn't. I was trying to fit in. All those things we teach kids on the playground. Hey, don't do that, because that's not going to turn out well eventually. You know? But I got wrapped up. I tried to do everything myself. You know, all those things that you get sucked into. Where as a teacher and a leader, I was very good at leveraging people, all those kids in the room, and my faculty team, and leveraging systems, putting systems in place. Everybody, you know, believed in it. And so I didn't seamlessly transfer. I tried to start this multiple times and fell apart until I finally realized through some great spiritual mentorship that, hey, buddy, you're creating an anxiety and fear. You're trying to keep your phone on instead of just being yourself. So I went back into the classroom for 2 years just recently, started working with inner city kids again, and just allowed 10, 20, 30 kids at a time to be my teachers and started listening to them and getting back to who I am and getting back in my sweet spot. And then I thought, hey, I'm in this place. The rest of my life is going great. Everything's awesome. I'm back in this sweet spot. Let me launch my business again from this sweet spot. And it just seems like all the dots are connecting right now. Everything's coming together. So it's a whole different experience for me as an entrepreneur this time. So now I want to coach everybody else like, hey, here's how you do this with ease, not with struggle.
So now what do you think was the reason that you struggled?
Well, it was simply that it was very simple. It was kid stuff, trying to be something you're not, trying to be whatever the world says a traditional business owner is, what an entrepreneur is, this, that, and the other thing. And I feel that suddenly I had to look right in front of my face are all these schools full of tools that accesses your higher consciousness through your excitement, and everything just works synchronistically and easily and magically. And I was like, well, wait a minute, why don't I start living what I'm trying to teach people? And that was the other thing. I was trying to teach from a place that wasn't authentic. I was scared to death. And I was trying to tell people, here's what you need to do. And stand in front of a classroom and try and do that. It doesn't work. I never had to. But suddenly I was starting to stand in front of professional people out in the world and trying to be something that wasn't authentic. And it just kept blowing up in my face until I figured it out.
Now, do you think that this framework of coaching, rather than teaching, are those just synonyms, or they're actually can you explain the difference between the two?
I think they're the same thing. I think, I hate to go contrary here a little bit, but I think a lot of coaches are missing that. They're not very good teachers. Maybe they're plugged into a system. Maybe they're saying what, they think they're supposed to say. But it's just, so to me, being a teacher and an entrepreneur is probably the closer, because as a teacher, you're selling something to an audience that doesn't even want to be there. They don't even want what you're selling. And yet they're coming back every day for more. So you're a pretty darn good entrepreneur.
Well, don't they? They have to, though.
Well, and I always convince my kids. I was convinced of this my senior year in high school by Dr. Hiska. He was like, you don't have to be here. You could go live on the street. You go start, from nothing. Go live in a car and build your legend. But you're deciding to come here. You decided to be here. So yeah, that kind of. They don't absolutely have to, but that's always funny to think about. But my kids kept coming back because they wanted to, and they were excited to. Their parents were like, I don't know what's going on, but this kid's they don't want to come home. So I was like, well, we need to talk about that. But getting back to that, I think coaches are forgetting the most important thing, and that is to, rather than talk about what they're forgetting, let me talk about what makes us unique. I think we just have practices. I know we have practices and tools that allow people to reveal what they need when they need it. So we never have to tell anybody what to do. Can't pay me $1 million a day to tell somebody what to do, because guess what I got to do tomorrow? I got to tell them what to do again. I got to tell them what to do again and again and again. But if I allow them to start designing their own path and telling themselves and revealing to themselves what's their highest purpose, and then that they become self-directed. I don't want to be the magic, and I want them to be the magic, because I want it to happen when I'm not around, and that's what's super important.
So you're kind of the Sherpa that's guiding them or opening their mind to another way.
Yeah, like for our writing program, you put pen to paper, and we have a series of 5 writing workshops. Put pen to paper, and whatever you need to do at that moment, it's going to show up. You're going to have that experience. A lot of our tools, we literally tell people you're having a shamanic outer body experience. You go to a place where you see, feel, and know everything, and you brought a recording device, and that's your pen. So you get to climb out of that experience with something tangible that you're holding in your hand, kind of like Moses coming down from the mountain, maybe. As I said the other day to a training group, they're like, I like that. But, you really have something tangible you can work with. And we really use the metaphor of the studio for us, is that, everyone's an artist, and they have we all have studios full of all of the things that we've created, both consciously and unconsciously. And we really help people manage the studio of that creative life of theirs, through the art of writing, through the art of leadership, through the art of entrepreneurship, and really bring things to fruition in that studio. Because there's a lot of stuff in there. You walk into an artist studio, you don't see an empty room with one easel in the corner, and it's an empty room, and the artist says, when I'm done with this, I'll start with my next one. That would be very strange. You walk into a room with multiple projects occupying the same space, all at various stages of development. And a lot of people are experiencing a very dysfunctional energy inside their studio. It's packed, for one. Just packed full of stuff that unconsciously gets put there and neglected. And it just becomes, and we tell people, you're not depressed, you're compressed. Your energy is so compressed in your studio. It's like that garage you can't get into. You lift the door up and you're like, I can't even take a step in here. How do I begin to even work in here? And so we teach people how to manage that studio energetically through our programs and practices, and to start bringing things to fruition and getting things the heck out of the studio where you can take them to market and create abundance for yourself and your community. That is our overreaching metaphor at the Raven Institute.
Now, is that are people hesitant to kind of publish their work because of fear, or they feel like maybe some imposter syndrome? What is kind of holding them back?
Well, you run into a lot of different games that people are playing psychologically. But we always say, that the School of Writing, our series of 5 workshops, is not only applied to books, it's applied to your book, your blog, your business, your film, your presentation, your speech, just whatever it is you're doing. You send it in there and out comes, and again, like I say, you start managing all the purpose, the passion, and the projects that you have in that studio of yours through the art of writing. And, a lot of the games, they show up, but we identify those as dysfunctional energies in your studio, and they're probably created by either neglect or something's going on, compression. So, there's usually a bully in the studio somewhere. There's something lurking in the dark. There's a boogeyman in there. There's an elephant in the room. There's a lot of things. But that metaphor of the studio really works. And we do the same thing with kids. We have a Beyond Tutoring program where we have them manage the studio of their academic life. We turn it into a big studio, which is what I did in my classroom. Nobody was on the same page in my class. This is a 9-month journey, a school year, right? You're all starting in the same line, but after a few weeks, you're all over them, and I allowed for that. I allowed them to design their path, and it became, way beyond anything I could have dreamt up when they start becoming self-directed. So
now, when you're working with somebody, what are they going through before they call you or somebody on your team? Like, what are kind of some of the breadcrumbs that lead them to you?
Well, our big trend right now, you and I spoke about, is business development, organizations, companies, business resource companies, coaches, if you will, consultants, working with clients and having a really tough time with bringing stuff to fruition. And mainly because they won't write. They really struggle with writing. And then so that's been a trend lately for us. So we're really helping those entrepreneurs get over that, they engage in our writing workshop 1 and 4, and they end up revealing everything they need to do to get their business plan done. It's incredibly powerful to watch that happen. And they do it with such ease. They're like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I could. And then of course, all these other things pop up in their studio. Now they can see everything. They start energetically managing it through our writing program. And then for leadership development, the people that are showing up are, the full spectrum, everything from a family to a corporate entity. And when you run into any of those groups, you're running into either a group that's struggling with its teamwork and its leadership, or you're running into a team that's high performing and they want to stay that way. They're high performing for a reason because they maintained it. And they're like, hey, what else can we do now? What can we do next? Let's find something to keep us at this high level. And so we can service both of those groups, and it's a lot of fun.
And then those are kind of foundational. And then once they kind of immerse themselves into the writing and or the leadership, then everything else kind of bubbles up from there.
Yeah, I love you mentioned that, because we incorporated our writing workshop 1 into our leadership development program so that people, again, have a running log of their experience. They're really integrating the experience too through the art of writing. And it becomes incredibly powerful to the individual and to the group as a whole as well.
Now, can you share a little bit about the writing program? Like, what does the beginning of that program look like? What are some of the things that they're going to learn, in the first session or so?
So every subtitle of the 5 workshops has the word reveal in it. So you engage in something and then something's revealed and you pick that thing up, you take it to the next workshop. So in writing workshop 1, what's revealed is what we call a pattern. You master 4 really powerful, massive writing tools that create clarity. So the subtitle is Purposeful Mess Making Reveals Clarity. It's kind of winded, but it's a paradox. It's like, what, I can go make a mess and I get permission to, but you're making a purposeful mess because you're engaged in specific tools that are revealing what? Clarity. And then that thing that bubbles to the surface after 15, 20, 25 writing sessions of workshop 1, a subject. We ask people, what kept bubbling to the surface? What's going on with regards to this project, this purpose, this whatever you're doing here, this passion you have. And so they take that subject, whatever it is, and they march over to workshop 2, and they do something called focusing the brain streaming, which is still the stream of consciousness writing from workshop 1, but now it's focused on that subject. And what happens in workshop 2 is incredibly magical. That focused brain stream writing, very strange term, creates what we call, if you're a sculptor, it creates the block of marble. And then for the rest of workshop 2, we go and find the statue in the marble. We carve away at that particular writing session. It's actually usually a collection of sessions. And out pops what we call a framework. So in workshop 2, focusing the brain streaming reveals a framework. And so where do we take the framework? We take it to workshop 3, which is where you draft. You fill in the frame. So in workshop 3, you do 2 very simple actions. You arrange your frame every time you go to write, every time you go to draft, you arrange your frame. If it takes a ping pong table, kitchen floor, counter, whatever it takes, you arrange it, you look at the flow, and you just add what's necessary. So arrange, add, A&A. There you go. And so that's your draft. And then workshop 4 is a compilation of all 5 workshops, because sometimes things have to get done tomorrow or yesterday. So you actually get to run through the whole series from a free writing of one of the tools from workshop 1. It's called dialogue. From that dialogue, you can now create a finished product. So free writing reveals a developed piece in workshop 4. And workshop 4 also serves as a purpose to start telling the story of your project that's running through the 5 workshop cycle. Now you start, that's your marketing. And that actually became the cornerstone of all 5 workshops when we came out of the classroom. Professional people just love workshop 4. Because once they master the system, once they master workshop 1, they can just start knocking things out. They can start creating massive amounts of content, start telling the story of their project, their purpose, their business, their passion, start telling the story of it, and start building an audience or educating their customer. And workshop 5, as you might guess, is the revision. You take the draft and you revise it. And workshop 5 is you engage in 3 different dialogues with the piece, with the draft, and you reveal authenticity. So what your goal is to get the piece, your audience, and the author all on the same page, pun intended. So that's in a nutshell how it works.
Do you find that most people, even if they are writing, that they aren't kind of doing those other steps? They might be doing the writing part, but they're not really kind of auditing their writing in terms of what are the themes, what are these issues that keep bubbling up, that they're kind of looking at things on maybe just doing the mechanics of the writing, but they're not really kind of delving deeper into the words.
Yeah, and here's what they're doing. They're drafting first. And notice how draft doesn't even show up until the 3rd workshop for us. So, and here's the thing. When you go through the 5 workshop cycle, your passion, purpose project will go through anywhere from 8 to 12 thresholds of understanding. So as you begin, you literally have no idea. You think the mind wants to know, right? The mind's like, well, I got to know. I got to have goals. I have to know what my expectations are. I have to know what the outcome's going to be. And your higher consciousness or your creativity is like, I don't create in that space. So I'm leaving. So guess what it feels like to create as a human alone without your creativity? Everybody out there listening knows how that feels like. They're all getting a big cement in their gut right now. Like, I can't, That's you without that's you not channeling your higher self. So, but when you start doing what we do, and literally they're 5 to 15 minute practices, that's all the time it takes. Literally in the first 15 minutes of workshop 1, you're transformed for life. You're given the permission slip, but you suddenly connect with your creativity. You're human, you become an embodied master, the human and your divine consciousness, whatever you want to call it, your creativity. Now you know how it feels. It's like, oh, all that stuff I can't get done, all that thing I call procrastination is just me, a human sitting in a room alone without my creativity there to help me. Well, of course I can't create without my creativity. And we spook creativity out of the room all the time because it cannot exist in the same space as suffering, as anxiety. And we all know how that feels. And when you hit the sweet spot, when you're on the golf course, when you're playing sports, when you're playing music, but you're with somebody you love, you know what that feels like. So the point is, what's so nice about what we do is it's so simple. And it literally 5 to 15 minutes, 4 or 5 times a week, and you will create a storehouse of content that'll fill your lifetime.
So it sounds like most people are kind of swimming upstream, and you're kind of turning them in the other direction, and all of a sudden they're swimming with the stream, and now things become easy.
That's beautiful. That's exactly my real estate mogul that I live with. She said the same thing today. She was like, yeah, swimming up the stream as opposed to just getting in the flow, just going with the stream.
Now, can you share a story of maybe one of your students that when you taught them how to kind of go with the flow and life became easier, that it took them to a new level? I mean, don't name names, but maybe a little bit of the before and the after.
Yeah, gosh, there's so many, it's hard to choose. I'll choose one that happened most recently. We're working with a business leader. He runs a pretty big organization, and he's going through our writing workshop 1 right now, and he engaged with the dialogue tool last week. It's the 4th of the 4 tools in writing workshop 1. We learn to actually have imaginary conversations on paper with anything related to your passion project, whatever you're working on in your studio that day. But he is revamping his business. He's completely pivoted it, going in another direction. So he had a conversation with the business. And what came out of that, literally, we looked at each other. We both said the same thing. I just saved my business. It would have failed. If I hadn't seen what this conversation just told me, what my business just told me I needed to pay attention to, it would have been a terminal illness that would have led to the end of my business. And so it's like, so in that simple 15 minutes, that's what was revealed, what he needed when he needed it. And he could have talked to anything in the room. I mean, he could have picked a rock in his garden and it would have given him the same information that day, because we find that's what always happens. I have another example if you have time. But
sure, go ahead.
So a pastor we worked with recently too got to that level of workshop or class 4. The dialogue tool, wrote a dialogue with something very simple. He's like, I got to keep it light. It's been a little too heavy for me lately. I got to keep this light. Let me just have a conversation with, I guess I'll say what it is, a new car. And he ended up, because he's pretty well trained in the system. He's going through our leadership development program too. So he's been doing a lot of the writing. So we looked at it, and he's starting to train his ear, and I have a trained ear. When he read the dialogue out loud to me, I heard a 14-chapter book. I heard 14 podcasts. I heard 14 sermons he could do at his church, because I know those passages that were inside. I heard them. I know how to hear those passages. And we train people to do that too. It's like from that 15-minute dialogue can emerge a 14-chapter book. From 15, and I did that over this. I do it all the time. I created a 23-chapter book over the summer when I had a imaginary conversation with one of my spiritual mentors, and I'm currently drafting that book. So in 15 minutes, 23-chapter book was revealed to me. So those are examples of just, how easy it can be. It's like, and I have people, I got to say this one. I should have remembered it first, if you have a second.
Sure.
But we had someone who had been through the 5-workshop system twice, and she showed up at our door like a year later. This was a few years ago. And she's like, hey, I want to put a business plan together. I know if I just come in and write this dialogue again, to my business idea as elder care business, I know I'll find it. I go, okay, let's do it. So she wrote the dialogue. We did 4 or 5 next sessions, found the statue inside the marble. And she had her business plan in 4 or 5 sessions with us from that 15-minute dialogue she wrote that night.
Wow.
So it's just extraordinary to watch what can happen. It's so cool.
Now, if there's a business coach out there or anybody interested in learning more about the Raven Institute, is there a website?
TheRavenInstitute.us.
And then at the website, there's some, I would imagine, thought leadership and maybe ways to connect with you or somebody on your team or go through the coaching.
Of portals in there. We call them portals. And you just go, oh, where do you want to go from here? And you just click and sends you where you need to go. Kind of like all our programs. Just you click on something, it tells you what to do next. So, and we're revamping the website to make it a lot more interactive. We want to be doing more online classes and create more interactive community. So we're working on that right now.
Well, congratulations on all the success. Thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Well, I appreciate your time, Lee.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We will see you all next time on Coach the Coach Radio.